Don't miss Your World with Neil Cavuto.
All right, this just in. Better use those frequent flyer points fast or else, because if you're still lucky to have them, no guarantee you'll be able to share them. Delta now says you die, your points do too. This follows other airlines requiring passengers use them or lose them within 2 years of getting them. What's weird is that they're cutting back on the bennies as they're, well, feeing you to the wall. They're hiking, I should say, charges yet again, everything from what you carry on to where you sit once you are on. To the airline insider who's saying, just come on. But I guess, Mark Murphy, you were telling me during the break, it is a sign of the times.
Absolutely. They need to make some money. They lost billions of dollars during the downturn, right? They're starting to make billions of dollars now, and a lot of that's because of the fees, $36 billion in fees.
Well, $36 billion
last year,
in fees
just
from
fees.
all the airlines.
Collectively.
So what's in these fees? That's everywhere
That's
you
everything.
sit,
Baggage
the blanket,
fees,
the
premium
coat.
seats, you want a Coke, you want nuts.
No way.
Absolutely, yeah. Now United introduced, which I think is a pretty good fee, which is you get your bags and they'll bring them all the way to your house. So you can just leave the airport after you land. I think that's actually a very good fee. I'd be willing to pay for that if I'm not needing that luggage.
This way, because you can cut out the middle line, because they lose the bag, and this way they just send it right to you.
Exactly.
But you know what I'm saying? They're doing all of this stuff with the fees, just as they're cutting back on what ostensibly used to be just a given benefit, the points, the miles. Very hard now with that stuff, and they're cutting back dramatically. Why?
Well, you know what it is? I think they have this huge liability hanging over their heads, and they're looking for ways to basically eliminate the liability. Think about it. Frequent flyer programs were started before deregulation, when the flight cost was tied to the distance flown. Now, in some cases, you fly to LA, it's $300. Today, it might be $1,700. You never know what you're going to get based on the time you book. So some of the frequent flyer programs are actually turning into revenue programs where it's going to be based on the price of the ticket, not the miles flown. And that's how they're going to determine whether you're valuable or not. Delta Sky.
But what's going to keep them loyal to you? I mean, a lot of people choose, all right, I'm, fly United. I have a lot of United. I prefer to get a United flight, And then they might say, well, no, because they're not doing it.
It becomes a commodity.
Right.
That's basically what they're doing. But the challenge that we have as flyers is for airlines basically control 85% of the U.S. market, the airspace. So what's your choice? If you want to fly out of Atlanta, you might be stuck on Delta. You want to fly out of Philadelphia, you can be flying the new American Airlines, which used to be U.S. Air before the merger,
so
right?
Just a few carriers and that's it.
Right. So where's the competition? And when there's no competition, they can afford to cut back on programs.
But they're all morphing into the same evil entity. What happens is that even, airlines has skewed this. You were talking a little bit about Southwest and so on. Now they're kicking the can. I don't know. What's going on there?
Well, I think when you look at Southwest, look at their advertising. They used to have those fun, quirky ads. They just changed their entire ad campaign to talk about Wi-Fi and getting you there. And I look at those ads and I say, you're going away from what made you unique. Southwest is a fun airline. You get on, they sing, all this really cool, quirky stuff. They were led by a very quirky guy who started the airline. Right. And today they're becoming almost like this corporate entity that you can't distinguish from the other carriers.
Well, maybe it's a long way from the Herb Kelleher days where they can't do that. So then maybe they can't do that. They're not making money. That model was great then, but it's not now.
Well, here's the challenge for Southwest. They're known as the low-cost carrier, but in many cases their fares are higher than their competition. So the days of getting that cheap airline ticket on Southwest, that doesn't really exist anymore. And again, it's about the competition on these routes.
But you were telling me customers don't remember how they're treated. Let's say there's a down period, and then the airlines are kind of in the pilot seat on this one.
Right now.
So let's say there's a downtime. Aren't you, as a customer, going to remember you treated me like an?
And you might try to switch, right? And you might be angry, but if you're stuck in Philadelphia, unless you want to drive to Newark and get on United, what are your options? You have very limited options out of Philadelphia. And these monopolies.
But when we've had slow periods before, people just didn't fly that much, right? So they zoomed the industry.
Right, so that's what happens. So you pull back, then they have to drop fares to get you on the planes. Business travelers, I'm an entrepreneur. I look at my expense line, and if airfares keep going up, at some point in time I say, hey, let's do a virtual event. Let's do a go-to-meeting. Let's do any other way to connect with that customer, if at all possible, because if I fly to Chicago, in some cases $700, $800 for an hour-and-a-half flight, the hotel's $300 or $400.
Well, don't they realize that they're burying themselves?
You get to that point. So
they're not there yet.
Not yet. And rates are going up.
Mark, on that upbeat note, happy Easter. Mark Murphy. In the meantime, as if demanding they hike their minimum wage wasn't enough, now the government